Gong Kei gazed at Fang Chen's deeply furrowed brows, reached out to loop her arms around his neck, and nestled her entire body into his embrace, asking in a coquettish voice, "Can I not say?" Fang Chen regarded her with wary suspicion. He had witnessed with his own eyes the sorry spectacle of the matchmaker being driven out, and he had also overheard her conversation with Yuan Jiyu inside the hall. Fang Chen narrowed his eyes slightly and probed, "You couldn't be reluctant to part with all those suitors who came proposing, could you?" Gong Kei was momentarily stunned upon hearing this, then burst out laughing with a PFFD. Not a single spark of anger arose in her heart. On the contrary, it brimmed with pure delight. Fang Chen truly cared for her, intensely and completely. Gong Kei asked with a beaming smile, "You're actually jealous." Fang Chen retorted testily, "Give me one reason why you absolutely must stay." Gong Kei suddenly leaned forward and planted a soft kiss on his cheek with a crisp "Mwah." Her eyes brimming with attachment, she said tenderly, "Silly man. In all my years, I never set my sights on any man from the 9 sects, remaining solitary for 3 decades. Now that I am your woman, Lord Fang, how could I possibly turn my gaze upon them?" Fang Chen's brow gradually smoothed out. On second thought, he realized it was true. If Gong Kei had truly wished for a man, she would not have remained alone until the age of 30. Gong Kei continued, "I originally intended never to marry in this lifetime. I never expected to meet you, and even more, I never imagined I would be bolder than Yu Mingzhu herself, taking the initiative to offer myself to you. I now somewhat understand why a woman like Consort Yunxia would stoop to clandestinely giving herself to you behind the firmament, demon emperor's back. When love for someone runs deep, one truly abandons the self, disregarding all bottom lines." As she spoke, she pursed her vermilion lips slightly, a tinge of shy blush stealing across her face. The last trace of doubt in Fang Chen's heart dissolved like mist with those words. He extended his arm and gently wrapped it around her slender waist. He sighed inwardly, for a woman as conservative and self-respecting as Gong Kei to have actively offered herself. Was this sentiment not already clear enough? After pondering in silence for a long while, Fang Chen let out a helpless sigh and said, "Very well, I will not press you on your reasons for staying on the mainland. However, separation across such distance is ultimately ill. I will only consent to you remaining on the mainland for half a year." Without a moment's hesitation, Gong Kei nodded, conceding half a step herself, and replied softly, "Agreed." Fang Chen's heart felt immensely lighter. One lingering regret was finally resolved. After a brief moment of thought, he retrieved a sword case from his storage space and tucked it gently into Gong Kei's arms. Gong Kei examined it curiously and asked, "What is this?" As she spoke, she moved to open it. Fang Chen, however, reached out and pressed down on the sword case, stating solemnly, "This is the Ruyi sword case. Sealed within is a formidable strand of sword intent. Once sufficiently nurtured, its power matches a full-force strike from a 9, aperture nascent soul. Keep it and only open it at a critical moment." A strike from a 9, aperture nascent soul. Gong Kei was so startled she immediately withdrew her hands, exclaiming urgently, "Why give something so precious to me? Keep it for yourself to safeguard your own life." Fang Chen smiled faintly and said, "With my current strength, this sword intent is no longer of great use. By leaving it to you, it is more than sufficient to handle any ancient giant below the Giant King." As he spoke, Fang Chen produced another jade talisman, the very same divine transformation attack talisman he had obtained from the storage ring of Venerable Heart Sin. He handed the talisman over and said somberly, "Take this talisman as well. Should you encounter an enemy that the sword intent cannot overcome, use it immediately." Even without probing with her spiritual sense, Gong Kei understood that this jade talisman was far more precious than the sword intent. Deep gratitude welled up in her eyes. Heaven-piercing marrow, sword intent, a mysterious jade talisman, Fang Chen was leaving all of his very best treasures for her. She cupped Fang Chen's face in both hands and said tenderly, "Thank you, husband. To have met you is a blessing bestowed upon me by the heavens." Fang Chen, beaming, took hold of her delicate hands from behind and leaned close to her ear, whispering with a low laugh, "And how will you thank me?" Gong Kei's pretty face flushed crimson, and she scolded him coquettishly, "Even a foolish tyrant isn't as besotted as you are." Though her mouth uttered complaints, her body slid down from Fang Chen's chest, and she knelt before him, then bent forward. Fang Chen exhaled a long, satisfied breath, feeling utterly refreshed, and proclaimed with a laugh, "I have attained enlightenment once more." Gong Kei raised a hand to wipe the corner of her lips, both exasperated and amused. "If you stay a few more days, won't you be gaining so many enlightenments that you instantly attain Buddhahood?" Though she said this, deep down she knew Fang Chen was swamped with matters and would not actually stay. To her surprise, Fang Chen very heartily burst out laughing. Splendid, but I require 3 enlightenments a day. No 5, no 10 enlightenments. Gong Kei threw her arms around his in ecstatic delight. Yes, yes. As long as you are willing to stay, you may seek as many enlightenments as you wish. She could scarcely believe that Fang Chen would actually stay just for her sake. Fang Chen wrapped his arm around her supple waist and declared sonorously with a grin, when life's joys abound, one must seize them to the fullest. Let not the golden goblet face the moon in vain. From now on, whenever I can be with you, I will treasure that time all the more. In the midst of her joy, a faint flicker of surprise stirred in Gong Kei's heart. She could not tell if it was an illusion, but she sensed that Fang Chen had changed somewhat. He seemed more spontaneous and unrestrained, as if he now cherished their time together even more. Yet, since this was a favorable change, she tucked away that surprise and did not inquire further. She could not help thinking of the equally lonely and desolate Yu Mingju, and thus she said softly, "Husband, please take extra care of Sect Master Yu. In truth, she is just like me, feeling dejected because she believes she has become a burden. It is merely that her cheerful nature has prevented it from showing." Fang Chen's smile faded as he nodded earnestly. "I shall head to the Acacia Sect shortly to find her and give her a proper explanation." Gong Kei abruptly sat up, shocked. "What? Sect Master Yu hasn't returned to the Heavenly Mechanism Pavilion?" Fang Chen countered. "She is not at the Acacia Sect." He had assumed all along that after Yu Mingju came to the mainland and never turned back, she had been influenced by Gong Kei and had likewise returned to her own sect. Gong Kei said urgently, that day, after she delivered the heaven, piercing marrow and the supplies, she merely mentioned she would first visit the Acacia Sect and then go to the place where you two first met. By the sound of it, she only intended to clear her thoughts, not to remain at the Acacia Sect. Fang Chen's expression changed drastically, and he blurted out, "Could something have happened to her?" He was instantly ready to rush off to the Acacia Sect, but as he looked at Gong Kei before him, he hesitated for a moment. He had only just promised to spend several more days with her, and now, right away, he was about to leave again. Gong Kei pushed him in agitation, urging, "What are you dazed about? Go find her quickly. If something befalls her, you will never find peace for the rest of your life, and it will become an eternal regret." Fang Chen, his face full of apology, whispered, "I will make it up to you later." With that, in desperate urgency, and daring no further delay, his figure flickered and shot through the air, departing at breakneck speed. Gong Kei watched him vanish into the distance until his silhouette disappeared entirely at the edge of the horizon. Only then did she retrieve the heaven, piercing marrow from her storage space, a gentle radiance suffusing her eyes. In her heart, she whispered, "I had intended to forget each other in the boundless Jiang, who at Fang Lake, but alas, I was too soft-hearted, and you have beguiled me back. Then I shall borrow upon this token of your care, and strive to elevate my strength as much as possible, so that you may worry less on my account." Thus she tilted her head back and drank the heaven, piercing marrow, initiating the critical juncture of her nascent soul breakthrough on the spot. Meanwhile, at the Acacia Sect, the entire assembly of Grand Elders, and Disciples was currently gathered in the main square. At the center of the square, a peerless beauty clad in a peach-red court gown was fiercely sparring with the head disciple, Zai Liushu. A crisp clang of clashing swords rang out, and Zai Liushu's figure was sent hurtling backward, crashing heavily beyond the arena stage. He flipped himself upright, wiped the trace of blood from his lips, and said with a rueful smile, "I have lost." Gazing up at the graceful figure atop the stage, he heaved a long sigh. They say after a parting of but 3 days, one must look upon a person with fresh eyes. "Junior Sister Jai, now I fear I would have to scrape out my very eyeballs just to take you in." The elders and disciples below the stage were likewise utterly astounded. Who could believe that Jai Ryu, who had only been at the Foundation establishment stage in years past, had now surged all the way to mid-core formation and had even overpowered THE head disciple, Zai Liushu, to become the current generation's foremost talent of the Acacia Sect? The Grand Elder officiating the spar walked forward and consoled Zai Liushu. "You are in fact exceptionally outstanding yourself. Having undergone the brutal tempering of the Boundary Mountain, you are no longer who you once were. However, your fortune is simply not as great as Jai Ryu's." She facilitated the fated bond between the Sect Master and Lord Fang, and thus the Sect Master has always granted her special care, sending an unending stream of every kind of resource from the Taikang Great Continent. It would be a wonder if you could defeat her. Back then, it was precisely Jai Ryu who had divulged the information about the nascent soul cave dwelling at the base of the snowy mountain cliff to Fang Chen. It was then, beneath the snowy mountain, that Fang Chen encountered the gravely wounded and dying Yu Mingju. and that nascent soul cave abode became the place where their fates intertwined. For this reason, Yu Mingju had always taken special care of Jai Ryu. Among the resources sent back to the sect, there was always a share prepared specifically for Jai Ryu. Thus, her cultivation soared, progressing by leaps and bounds. The comfort only deepened his anguish. Zai Liushu's heart grew heavier instead. Because when Jai Ryu first revealed the news of the nascent soul cave abode, he was right there. Zai Liushu gave a helpless, bitter laugh. This must be fate. Elder Ling then stepped onto the platform and announced with a beaming smile, "Congratulations, Jai Ryu, on winning the match. In that case, the position of 10th Elder of the Blending Joy sect shall be yours." In the Battle of the Boundary Mountain, the Blending Joy sect suffered heavy casualties among its elders. The vacant elder positions were gradually filled from among the stewards and disciples. Jai Ryu overpowered the entire sect and deservedly became the 10th elder. Elder Ling brought out the token and a set of elder's robes. Jai Ryu accepted only the token and said softly, "There is no need for the robes. What I am wearing is fine." Elder Ling looked at Jai Ryu's peach-red round, collared palace dress. The garment was dignified and elegant, fitting her perfectly in every seam. Yet it was utterly incongruous with the Blending Joy sect's skimpy attire. Elder Ling asked with a trace of puzzlement, "Why do you always wear such attire?" Jai Ryu smiled faintly and replied, "Because Senior Fang said this outfit is beautiful and quite suits me." Hearing this, Elder Ling immediately understood. She was yet another foolish woman, whose affection met with cold indifference. Elder Ling gently consoled her. "Ryu, look forward. Do not let a lifelong regret be caused by a stunning person you met in your youth. This person you will likely never meet again in this life." Nowadays, Fang Chen was a figure whose influence was at its zenith across the entire Take, in Great Prefecture. He traveled high above in the sky, dwelling among the clouds. He was no longer the youth of yesteryear whom Jai Ryu could ever chance upon again. Jai Ryu's gaze dimmed as she said quietly, "Thank you for your guidance, Elder Ling." In truth, she had no extravagant hopes. She only wanted to hear that person's voice once more. Suddenly, a fierce gale swept in without any forewarning. The drifting clouds in the sky shifted violently. The forests around the Blending Joy sect undulated like surging waves. Everyone's expression changed slightly as they struggled to withstand the howling gale, turning to look toward the source of the hurricane. They saw a black dot racing toward them from the edge of the world. He strode across the void, his extreme speed propelling the atmosphere, creating the mighty hurricane. The crowd inwardly exclaimed, "A nascent soul superior." They were astounded, every face showing awe. Such an existence that traversed the void and seemed like a sovereign made the crowd revere him as a god. Only when they clearly saw the visage of the visitor did they all become shocked in unison. Someone stammered out, "Fang Chen, no, Senior Fang." The visitor was none other than Fang Chen, who had arrived with lightning speed. He leaped onto the arena platform, swept his gaze around, and immediately spotted the familiar figure in the peach-red palace dress before him. Fang Chen asked urgently, "Jai Ryu, where is your sect master?" Jai Ryu was stunned for a moment, wondering if she was dreaming. She actually saw Fang Chen, and moreover, he had taken the initiative to speak to her. Jai Ryu was flattered and startled, and quickly said, "Our sect master returned half a month ago, but then departed again." Fang Chen thought to himself, she indeed did not remain in the Blending Joy sect. Then where did she go? Gong Kei had said that Yu Mingju wanted to go see the place where they first began. Fang Chen couldn't help but ponder. Where was this place where it all began? When he noticed Jai Ryu in front of him, the nascent soul cave abode surfaced in his mind. That was precisely the place where he and Yu Mingju had first met. People only recall past warmth when their present lives are unhappy. Just how desolate must Yu Mingju be to return alone to the place where they had met? A twinge of self-reproach surged within his heart. He nodded to Jai Ryu and said, "Thank you." Then he soared into the air and disappeared into the vast firmament. Left behind Jai Ryu gazed upward for a long while before a smile of relief slowly spread across her lips. She murmured to herself, "I finally got to see him again. I should be content." Meanwhile, after Fang Chen's departure, on a mountain peak bordering the Blending Joy sect and the Spirit Beast sect, a different scene unfolded. There, snow-capped mountains towered, covered in vast, gleaming white, making every step difficult. A cluster of purple mist swirled around a group of strange figures. The shortest of them was 2 zhang, the tallest over 4 zhang. All were bare-chested, exuding an aura of primal savagery. A 3-jiang tall giant, carrying Zhu Wanzhang's corpse on his shoulder, spoke in a deep voice. "Blood General, are we going back just like this? We didn't obtain the evil crow jade seal of the great Yin sect, nor did we capture the little spirit beast that took away the merit virtue. How will we report to the city lord?" They were none other than the half-giants who had come from Sky Ruin City in the Void Realm province. They came to the Take in Great Prefecture firstly for the evil crow, jade seal of the great Yin sect, and secondly to capture the little Killen. Their leader was a 4-yanked all-giant named Zhu Kainzhang. A cold gleam flickered in Zhu Kainzhang's eyes as he said, "The city lord gave us only half a month, but we've delayed for more than 2 10 days. If we delay further, the consequences will be even more severe. As for the evil crow jade seal, we'll report truthfully to the city lord. That man, Fang Chen, since he dared to compete with us for the seal, should be prepared to lose his pathetic life." His tone shifted as he continued. "As for that little spirit beast, now that we've confirmed it is in the Taking Great Prefecture, it's easy. The sage will personally descend upon the Taking Great Prefecture to find it. Let's go, return." Zhu Kainzhang leaped first, plunging down the endless abyss of the cliff. The others, their doubts dispelled, also jumped down one after another. Soon they squeezed into the nascent soul cave abode, which was extremely cramped relative to their size. They came before the black pill furnace, carved with 9 dragons. Zhu Kainzhang looked down and noticed that the pill furnace had been moved. He narrowed his eyes and said, "A nascent soul cultivator has discovered this place and tried to shift the furnace. Only a nascent soul spirit could ever hope to move this furnace." But the pill furnace before them, indeed, bore faint signs of having been moved. This was not a good sign. Zhu Kainzhang thought for a moment, then took out an explosive jade talisman, a look of regret on his face. This 9-dragon demon cauldron is a top-grade spirit artifact. I had originally wanted to secretly take it away during the Ancient War, but now a nascent soul has set eyes on it. Rather than let it benefit the Taking Great Prefecture, it's better to exile it to the void. What our Sky Ruin City cannot have, others shall never hope to obtain. He placed the jade talisman under the 9-dragon demon cauldron and urged Go leave quickly. After the time it takes to drink a cup of tea, the talisman will detonate the spatial energy within the cauldron, tearing open the void and devouring everything around. As he spoke, he opened the furnace lid. A violent surge of spatial power flashed out and sucked them all in. With a heavy, muffled clang, the lid slammed shut, and the surroundings instantly returned to deathly silence. Shortly after, a piercing sound of something tearing through the air shot rapidly toward the cave. A voice called out anxiously as it entered, "Yu Mingzhu." But there was no response from within the cave. Worry rose in Fang Chen's heart. If Yu Mingzhu was not here, then where else could she be? Was she at Tai Lake? Or at the Boundary Mountain? Or had she already returned to the Taking Great Prefecture, but was hiding alone somewhere, unwilling to return to the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion? While pondering, he had already stepped into the cave abode. Only then did he notice something unusual. The ground, which should have been covered in dust, was instead marked with many enormous footprints. They were shaped like human feet, yet astonishingly large. The smallest one was as large as Fang Chen's own chest. Fang Chen muttered in confusion, "Are these from ancient giants?" He then shook his head. "No, they're smaller than ancient giants, but still several times larger than normal humans. It's half-giants." He quickly identified them, his eyes narrowing. "Are these the half-giants who are hunting the little Killen? I recall their leader is called Zhu Kainzhang, right? Why would they appear here?" Following these footprints, Fang Chen cautiously made his way to the alchemy chamber on the left. The floor was still covered with footprints, but there was no sign of the half-giants. Fang Chen looked perplexed. Have they left? But that wasn't right. The air was still thick with their savage, primordial scent, indicating they had been here not long ago. If they had left, they should have run right into Fang Chen coming here. Fang Chen's eyes flickered. Something's off. He narrowed his eyes and stared intently at the tightly closed lid of the pill furnace. If there were any mystery left in this nascent soul cave dwelling, it would be none other than the 9-dragon demon cauldron before him. He closed his eyes and activated the spatial origin within his body. Upon careful perception, he indeed sensed the abnormally vast spatial power inside the cauldron. Fang Chen was taken aback. This cauldron is the array I of a state-level teleportation array. Those half-giants, they used this cauldron to travel between the 2 states. No wonder they vanished so suddenly. I never expected a hidden teleportation array between Gixu State and Taikang State to be concealed here. Fang Chen sighed with emotion. Back then, the nascent soul cave dwelling that he and Yu Mingju had stumbled upon actually hid such a great secret. Truly unexpected. Wait. Fang Chen's expression suddenly froze. He grabbed the 9-dragon demon cauldron and blurted out, could it be that when Yu Mingju came here, she inadvertently activated the spatial power within the 9-dragon demon cauldron and was teleported to Gixu State? Is that why her whereabouts are unknown? At this thought, Fang Chen's face drastically changed. This teleportation array most likely leads to Tianyi City, which is probably the half-giant's territory. If Yu Mingju, a woman, was teleported there, would she be in danger? Having witnessed the actions of half-giants like Zhu Wanzhong and Zhu Qianzhang, he knew none of them were easy to deal with. Without a second thought, he grasped the cauldron lid. Yu Mingju had abandoned everything to follow him far away to Taikang State. But Fang Chen, even for a moment's company, required Yu Mingju to plead softly before he reluctantly granted it. Now, Yu Mingju was alone, forlornly revisiting old haunts, silently mourning the past. Worse, she was accidentally teleported to Gixu State and trapped in layers of peril. What hesitation could he possibly have? He must immediately go to Gixu State to rescue her. However, he didn't let this throw him into disarray. Fang Chen flipped his hand and took out the spatial mirror. The little Qilin poked its fluffy little head out of the mirror and asked, Master, what happened? Fang Chen pondered briefly, then asked Yu, are you from Tianyi City in Gixu State? He remembered that Zhu Qianzhang had mentioned the little Qilin was the spirit beast of a certain sage, and had gotten lost in Tianyi City. The little Qilin nodded, then quickly shook its head, saying, I indeed come from Gixu State, but it also seems I came to Gixu State from an even more distant place. Fang Chen couldn't help but be surprised. A more distant place. Where exactly are you from? Come to think of it, the little Qilin had never spoken in detail about its origins. The little Qilin scratched its head with its short, pudgy paws and said vaguely, I can't remember clearly either. Anyway, it was a very, very far place. I only remember that after I woke up, some people in Gixu State tried to capture me. Later, an auntie, wiping her tears, tossed me into a teleportation array. After that, I was teleported to the Northern Sea. Then I hid in the Tiger, Demon Emperor's cave dwelling, and later was chased all the way by the heavenly firmament, Demon Emperor, until I met Master. An auntie wiping her tears. Who was that? Fang Chen gently stroked the little Qilin's round head and said warmly, if you can't remember, then don't think about it. Including Huo Xin, he already had 2 companions by his side who had forgotten who they were. He had long grown accustomed to this. Since you were once captured by people from Gixu State, then hide well in this mirror and don't come out again. Zhu Qianzhang said you are the spirit beast of a sage. The person who wants to capture you is undoubtedly an existence at the sage realm. If he discovers your traces, I won't be able to protect you. Hearing this, the little Qilin immediately bared its fangs and claws, revealing 2 sharp little tiger teeth, and roared adorably fierce. Then I'll slap him to death with my paw. Fang Chen laughed in spite of himself and stuffed it back into the mirror. He took a deep breath and lifted his hand to open the cauldron lid. A torrent of majestic spatial power instantly swept out, enveloping him and pulling him in. At the bottom of the cauldron, a talisman flickered unsteadily, flashing with an urgent, dangerous red light. Inside the long spatial tunnel. Gazing out at the pitch-black void, Fang Chen couldn't help but recall the last time he crossed a state-level teleportation array and was hunted by the Asura Holy Sun. That perilous experience still left him with lingering fear. He couldn't help murmuring under his breath, this time should be safe, right? I've used a privately built teleportation array for the 3rd time. Give me a break and let me land safely in Gixu State. If only he hadn't said anything. The moment he spoke, the spatial tunnel he was in shuddered violently. A thunderous roar, overwhelming and devastating, suddenly erupted from behind. Fang Chen's face turned green. No way. You've got to be kidding me. He turned his head to look and saw the spatial tunnel he had come from was shattering at an alarming speed. Vaguely, he glimpsed a corner of the void being torn open, revealing the scenery of Taikang State. That was exactly where the snowy mountain was located. The state-level teleportation array is destroyed. Would the 9-dragon demon cauldron not also fall into the void? Fang Chen was both alarmed and pained. Back then, his soul had not yet reached the level of a 5-star soul master, so he couldn't take the 9-dragon demon cauldron. Now that he finally met the requirement, the 9-dragon demon cauldron would very likely fall into the depths of the void. Suddenly, a large mass of debris from the nascent soul cave dwelling was expelled into the void. Among them, a large black cauldron, along with countless fragments, plunged toward the void's depths. Fang Chen's expression changed drastically, but then, immediately, a look of joy appeared. He decisively took out the void fishing rod and flung it toward the 9-dragon demon cauldron from afar. In the next instant, the hook precisely caught the 9-dragon demon cauldron, fishing it back from the drifting wreckage. Fang Chen caught it with both hands. An indescribably heavy force suddenly assaulted him, making it impossible for him to support it. He was dragged violently downward, just as it was about to crash down on the already precarious spatial tunnel. Fang Chen hurriedly channeled his soul power, enveloping the entire 9-dragon demon cauldron. Only then did it stop its descent. Fang Chen secretly let out a sigh of relief. I almost forgot. This 9-dragon demon cauldron can only be lifted with soul power. Fortunately, my soul power had already reached the peak of the 5-star soul master level. Otherwise, I really wouldn't be able to hold onto this cauldron. At this moment, holding it with soul power, it was practically effortless, as if a feather had been added to his shoulder. It was hard to imagine that its true weight was so terrifyingly immense. Even a deity transformation venerable of the first decline of heaven and man might not be able to lift it with brute force. I wonder what wondrous uses this cauldron has. Fang Chen's eyes were full of curiosity. Since this cauldron could serve as the array I of a state-level teleportation array, besides pill refining, it should have other functions. However, the sound of explosions came again from the end of the spatial tunnel. Now was not the time to study the 9-dragon demon cauldron. This state-level teleportation spatial tunnel was collapsing rapidly. With a thought, he stored the 9-dragon demon cauldron into the heavenly thunderstone. Then, quick as lightning, he turned and fled. But the spatial collapse was simply too fast. In the blink of an eye, a turbulent spatial current swept over from behind, destroying everything in its path and scattering it into the void. Fang Chen's scalp tingled with fear. He immediately activated Cloud Shadow to race ahead at top speed. But after a dozen or so uses, the power of thunder and lightning was exhausted. He decisively took out a mountain of thunder and lightning. This was precisely the compensation that old man Tianji had demanded from that expert at the second decline of heaven and man from the young Emperor Mountain. He absorbed the power of thunder and lightning while using Cloud Shadow. Thus, he slowly widened the gap. Fang Chen finally managed to outrun the collapse of the spatial tunnel and even saw the tunnel's end. A massive array, suspended in the void, rotated slowly, emitting a faint white light. As long as he passed through it, he would successfully arrive in Gixu State. But at that moment, suddenly, a loud crack rang out. Without any warning, the array cracked. The tunnel connected to the array was covered in dense cracks, about to explode into pieces. Fang Chen's pupils constricted sharply. Someone was destroying the array on the other end. Combined with the fact that shortly after he had entered, the array on the taking state end had been destroyed, he immediately understood what was happening, and his eyes blazed with fury. It was Zhu Kainjiang. To ensure the teleportation array was completely destroyed, he even destroyed the array on the Gixu State side as well. Crack. The array suddenly burst apart, and chaotic spatial power surged out, violently pounding the spatial tunnel. Now he was in the middle of the void. Behind him, there was no way back. Even more terrifying was that the array before him was disintegrating rapidly. He would never make it in time. And once the spatial tunnel collapsed, he would have no chance to use the void fishing rod again before being swept away by the void directly. He took a fierce breath of the Thunder Dao power from the Thunder Mountain, then activated the Heavenly Abyss Heart. The accumulated Heavenly Abyss Heart Force instantly expanded the distance of his Cloud Shadow walk by tenfold. Whoosh! At the very moment the formation completely collapsed, Fang Chen's body was already more than halfway through. But his feet were not so fortunate. With a sickening crack, they were severed and forever lost in the void as the formation disintegrated. Yes. Fang Chen broke out in cold sweat from the pain. Fortunately, a wave of air infused with both spiritual Kai and Yin Kai hit him in the face. He had barely managed to arrive in Gixu province. However, now was not the time to celebrate. Because the damaged formation caused the spatial forces to become chaotic, it did not deliver him to the other side of the teleportation array. Instead, he was randomly teleported to some place in Gixu province. Fang Chen was no stranger to this kind of random teleportation. It often transported him near something that had a close connection to an item on his person. The fact that he and venerable True Words had fallen from the sky and crashed into each other was the best proof. He had no prior connection to Gixu province at all. This random teleportation wouldn't just send him straight to the Moonbright Pearl, would it? Then a dizzying whirl spun him around. He didn't even have time to swallow a rejuvenation pill before his entire body turned into a fireball and smashed fiercely toward a ruined human city. In the city, a young woman wearing a golden mask, her black hair cascading like a waterfall, stood on a rooftop gripping a 3-foot-long azure sword. She wore a fiery red long dress. In the turbulent winds, her dress flapped fiercely, clinging tightly to her body and outlining an extremely alluring silhouette. Her situation didn't look good. Her face was pale, a trace of blood at the corner of her mouth. Her nascent soul power was nearly exhausted. Behind her lay an old woman at the 8 apertures nascent soul stage, severely wounded and near death, deeply unconscious. Before her, several half-giants circled around. The shorter ones stood 3 zhang tall, while the tallest was a full 4 zhang. The 4 zhang half-giant, his eyes cold, said in a deep voice, "Fairy Zue, why meddle in other people's affairs? Your starry mountain and our heavenly relic city are about to become allies through marriage. Why cause unpleasantness over an 8 apertures nascent soul cultivator you don't even know?" Though the face beneath Fairy Zue's golden mask could not be seen, her cold, clear voice was enough to show her resolute attitude. Her tone icy, she slowly said, "Rather than accuse me of meddling, I want to know why you are so relentlessly pursuing a human 8 apertures nascent soul, even going so far as to deploy a half-giant on the verge of the Dharma manifestation realm." The 4 zhang half-giant narrowed his eyes and issued an ultimatum in a low voice. "Fairy Zue, I'm saying this for the last time, do not meddle, stand aside." He paused, his tone tinged with suppressed killing intent. "We've already shown mercy out of respect for the fact that you're about to become our young city lord's wife." Fairy Zue said nothing, slowly raising her icy azure blade to point its tip directly at his face. Her voice resolute, she coldly shouted, "Then kill me." A ruthless look immediately surfaced in the 4 zhang half-giant's eyes as he snarled, "Fine, you asked for this. I'm sure the city lord and young city lord will understand our actions." Before his words even faded, his mountain-like frame shook violently as a terrifying power capable of crushing everything around him erupted. Yet at the very moment he was about to strike, a blinding red light blazed to life across the heavens. A colossal fireball, trailing thick smoke and raging flames, was plummeting down with world-ending momentum. The 4 zhang half-giant's gaze sharpened and he yelled upward, "It's a human 8 apertures nascent soul, everyone dodge." The surrounding half-giants' hearts seized with fear, and they hastily scattered in all directions. Fairy Ziwe's expression shifted slightly as well. She scooped up the unconscious old woman with one hand, her figure turning into a streak of light as she retreated explosively. What tightened her heart was that the moment she moved, the blazing fireball actually adjusted its trajectory, as if it had locked onto her unerringly and was charging straight at her. An enemy, Fairy Ziwe's brows furrowed slightly. She simply stopped, unhurriedly taking out a pitch, black long spear and gripping it tightly. The razor-sharp spear tip was aimed from afar at the massive incoming fireball. If the newcomer did not stop, he would inevitably be skewered on the spot by that fierce spear tip. At this moment, within the rapidly plummeting fireball, Fang Chen's figure was unmistakable. Unlike the last time he fell injured, this time his mind was still fully alert. Sensing that he was about to land at his destination, he immediately activated his spatial arts, forcibly ripping through the flames to break free. As the residual flames on his body abruptly died out, he decisively stuffed a handful of rejuvenation pills into his mouth, racing against time to heal himself. Then he hovered in midair, sizing up the masked girl before him, and couldn't help but frown deeply. Though her face was obscured, her figure was extremely tall and slender, with a cold and aloof temperament. This was clearly not Moonbright Pearl. How had he been teleported right in front of her? As he examined her, her gaze swiftly scanned over him. At this moment, Fang Chen's hair was all burnt to a crisp, his face completely blackened, his original features utterly indistinguishable. However, the girl's attention was quickly drawn to one of the 3 swords on Fang Chen's back, the one gleaming with purple light. She fixed her gaze on it, and her pupils suddenly constricted violently. Then she re-examined Fang Chen's charred face, the shock in her eyes intensifying. Her graceful figure trembled slightly, and even her hands were shaking uncontrollably. With a dull thud, the unconscious old woman she had been holding slipped from her grasp and fell to the ground, and she nearly lost her grip on the sword in her hand as well. However, this brief moment of locked eyes did not last. The four Zhang half-giants' eyes turned cold as he secretly signaled the other half-giants. Understanding his intent, the half-giants' faces twisted into ferocious grins, and with a rustle they closed in, surrounding Fang Chen and Fairy Ziwei together at the center. Fang Chen instantly noticed their movements. When he clearly saw that they were all half-giants, his expression darkened. He had been fretting about not knowing where to find Zhu Qianzhang to avenge his severed leg, and now these half-giants had actually come looking for trouble on their own. Don't court misfortune. Fang Chen's face was as dark as water as he coldly said. Ever since he learned the origins of the half-giants, he had not an ounce of goodwill toward this group. After encountering people like Zhu Wanzhong and Zhu Qianzhang, his disgust had only intensified. If they truly provoked him, he would definitely not show the slightest mercy. The four Zhang half-giant glanced at Fang Chen's blood-soaked severed leg and mocked contemptuously, crippled to this extent and still so arrogant. Perfect, I never intended to let you leave alive anyway. A ferocious light exploded in his eyes as he suddenly opened his huge mouth. An ear-piercing, terrifying shriek erupted with a boom, a sonic secret art that compressed air in the chest and expelled it instantaneously with mighty physical force. The shriek was extremely penetrative. Upon hearing it, Fang Chen's blood and Kai reversed, and his body felt as if it were being torn apart with excruciating pain. Fairy Ziwei also had a pained look in her eyes, and uncontrollably let out a few groans. Gritting her teeth against the agony, she swiftly produced 3 strands of soft, halo-like starlight, which appeared to be some sort of protective treasures. With a flick of her finger, 1 strand of starlight shot out first. But the first to receive protection was neither herself nor the unconscious old woman behind her, but rather the complete stranger, Fang Chen. Watching that strand of starlight steadfastly land on himself, Fang Chen couldn't help but be stunned for a moment, confusion surfacing in his eyes as he gazed deeply at Fairy Ziwei. This girl, was she actually so concerned for him? Could she know him? Before he could ponder further, the gentle starlight had transformed into a drifting film of light that spread out, enveloping his entire body, and the impact of the sonic wave immediately eased considerably. After Fairy Ziwei applied the starlight to herself and the old woman, the damage was reduced to a minimum. Her expression summer, she coldly shouted, "Do not harm the innocent. Whatever it is, bring it all on me." The 4 Zhang half-giant snorted coldly, his tone sinister. "You're a clay bodhisattva crossing a river, hardly able to save yourself, and you still dare to protect someone else." He immediately roared, "What are you all standing around for? Send this young madam on her way." The surrounding half-giants' eyes blazed with ferocity, their faces splitting into bloodthirsty grins. Without an instant of hesitation, one of the 3 and a half-Zhang giants launched the first attack. His legs smashed into the earth, unleashing a burst of peerless speed that carved streaks of afterimages across the void. Purple Myrtle Fairy's gaze turned icy, and she fearlessly slashed out with her sword. Her swordsmanship was exceptionally exquisite. The blade struck with unerring precision upon the opponent's colossal fist. What was terrifying, however, was that this Azure Spirit sword bit deep, yet only sent brilliant sparks flying. The 3 and a half-Zhang giant let out a savage grin and jeered, "Before, I merely held back from killing blows. You, a mere 4, aperture nascent soul cultivator, actually think you can match me in a fight." His enormous fist violently shuddered, and a force like an overturned mountain instantly surged forth, ruthlessly blasting the green sword aside. The razor-sharp fist wind then drove straight in, accompanied by deafening sonic booms, barreling directly toward Purple Myrtle Fairy's face. This punch came far too fast. In that instant, Purple Myrtle Fairy's entire field of vision was filled by that enormous, merciless fist. Her pupils sharply contracted. Her heart hammered violently. Dodging was already impossible. In that moment, she understood in her heart that this time she would likely truly die. But for some reason, she felt little fear. Instead, a vague, indescribable sense of liberation welled up within her. A sharp pain surged violently, but then it rapidly eased and dissipated. Startled and doubtful, she opened her eyes and saw that the lethal fist had been frozen right before her face. Only the incoming wind of the punch had stung her slightly. Out of the corner of her eye, she suddenly saw Fang Chen had moved in a flash, and with just one hand had firmly gripped the 3, and a half-Zhang giant's bulging, vein-ridden arm. No matter how the giant's face flushed crimson as he strained his divine might, he was like an ant trying to shake a tree. utterly unable to break free. "You reckless fool," the 3.5 Yang giant could not help but turn furious from humiliation. His physical prowess was sufficient to match an 8 aperture nascent soul spell cultivator head on. Yet now Fang Chen was suppressing him with sheer physical strength, leaving him immobile. To him, this was nothing short of a colossal disgrace. With a furious roar, his other hand instantly formed a blade, like palm, stabbing viciously toward Fang Chen's throat, aiming to pierce through his neck entirely. However, before his killing strike could be delivered, Fang Chen's eyes abruptly narrowed, and 2 bolts of solid, condensed lightning shot out instantly, blasting precisely onto the opponent's head. The 3.5 Yang giant's head exploded like a ripe watermelon, bursting with a thunderous crash. Expressionlessly, Fang Chen released his grip, letting the limp, headless corpse thud heavily to the ground. A surge of spiritual energy welled up in his palm, and he fastidiously washed off the tainted blood from his hand, speaking in a detached tone, "I told you, don't seek trouble." The several half giants who had surrounded them were all shocked at the sight, their faces filled with terror as they hastily recoiled. Even the 4.5 Yang giant was greatly startled. He had never expected that this person not only possessed cultivation at the 8 aperture nascent soul level, but also had a physique simultaneously at the 8 aperture level. It must be known that most spell cultivators excel in cultivation base, while their physical bodies remain relatively frail. The youth before him was completely the opposite. He quickly weighed things in his mind. With his own strength, killing Fang Chen might not be a problem, but if it truly came to a life and death struggle, he would surely struggle. To keep Purple Myrtle Fairy in check, that woman would definitely seize the opportunity to escape with the old woman. It would be better to placate this man for now and secretly bring reinforcements. His gaze flickered, and he spoke in a deep voice. "Sir, you have great skill, but provoking Heavenly Remnant City is by no means a wise move. You had best take care of yourself. Let's go." But while he wanted to retreat temporarily and then secretly follow, Fang Chen might not agree. Fang Chen slowly turned around, undisguised killing intent flickering in his eyes, and coldly barked, "Did I permit you to leave?" The 4.5 Yang giant, enraged to the point of laughter, snarled viciously, "I give you a way out and you refuse it." Fang Chen drew the long sword radiating purple light in his backhand, his killing intent intensifying. He worded each syllable deliberately. "First, your eyes tell me you never planned to stop here. Second, I likewise have no intention of letting you off." This group's strikes were so vicious. How could Fang Chen hold any mercy in his heart? The 4.5 Yang giant's eyes flashed with ferocity, and his tone was icy. "It's been a long while since anyone dared speak to us of Heavenly Remnant City like this. By the looks of it, you must be from an outer province. Since you can't learn to do as the locals do, then stay here and die a stranger in a foreign land. All of you stop Purple Myrtle Fairy. Don't let her escape." As soon as he finished, his massive body suddenly shuddered, and streaks of violent purple light flared within him. It was unmistakably the surging of an ancient giant bloodline. Thereupon, a towering, blurry-faced phantom manifested behind him, 3-headed and sick, armed, majestic beyond compare. Fang Chen was all too familiar with this oppressive aura. This was exactly the phantom that manifested when a body cultivator had 1 foot in the Dharma manifestation realm. The 4.5 Yang giant before him, like Zhu Kainzheng, was a body cultivator on the verge of the Dharma manifestation realm. His power was entirely equivalent to a 9 aperture nascent soul spell cultivator. They were entirely different from ordinary nascent soul powerhouses. Despite possessing the 9 aperture nascent soul, they did not descend into madness, remaining lucid at all times. When Fang Chen was still at the 5 aperture stage, he had fought a fierce battle against Zhu Kainzheng. Winning had been as difficult as climbing to the heavens. But now, Fang Chen stared at the savage giant before him, whose entire body surged with violent malevolence, standing 4.5 Yang tall. A thought stirred slightly in his mind. The soul imprisonment lock, unused for a long time, was activated in an instant. In that split second, the 4.5 Yang giant was horrified to discover that his soul had been tightly bound by countless invisible chains, completely losing control of his body. He could only watch helplessly as Fang Chen, holding the purple sword, executed a fierce spatial blink right before him and raised the blade to strike down. A colossal wave of shock surged in the giant's eyes. At the exact moment, Fang Chen's sword slashed into his neck. A furious roar erupted from within his body. A dense fog of purple, black billowed violently from his skin, rapidly coalescing into a solid Dharma manifestation, 10 Yang tall, 3-headed and sick, armed, enveloping his entire frame securely. The moment this Dharma manifestation appeared, it immediately severed Fang Chen's soul's secret technique, allowing the 4.5 Zhang giant to regain control of his body. He panted heavily, his heart palpitating with lingering terror, his eyes still filled with dread as he blurted out, "You are also proficient in high-level soul secret techniques." When Fang Chen's purple sword struck the Dharma manifestation, it was like a clay ox entering the sea. The blade could not even cut into the surface layer. The 4.5 Zhang giant forcibly composed himself and let out a cold snort. "Don't waste your efforts. This is the Dharma manifestation of a great martial. Only a divine transformation, venerable, of the spell cultivation lineage, arriving in person, could possibly break it open. You, a mere 8 aperture nascent soul, need not indulge in wishful thinking." As he spoke, he cautiously retreated under the protection of the manifestation, his voice dripping with frost. "You have no idea just how big a matter you've involved yourself in. What awaits you will be the endless pursuit of heavenly Remnant City." Jue Fairy's eyes showed a trace of worry, and she couldn't help but speak in a low voice. "Young master, you should leave quickly. Go swiftly to the Imperial Observatory and use the official teleportation array to depart." She deliberately stressed the words, "official teleportation array." Fang Chen did not reply, only coldly staring at the 10 Zhang Dharma manifestation before him, his tone indifferent, threatening me. "You'd better worry about yourself first." With a clear, resonant sword cry, the 2 long swords behind him flew out in succession and rapidly formed a sword array with the purple sword in his hand, transforming into a sharp 3 colored divine rainbow. Fang Chen raised his hand and pointed from afar. That 3 colored divine rainbow suddenly shot through the air, slashing fiercely onto the 3-headed, 6-armed Dharma manifestation. It must be known that this divine rainbow could even cut down a divine transformation venerable's true body in one strike, much less a mere Dharma manifestation. The Dharma manifestation flailed its 6 arms madly, attempting to block. In a mere instant, all 6 arms were cleanly severed. Then the 3-colored divine rainbow chopped downwards, actually cleaving the 10 yanked all Dharma manifestation into 2 halves. The 4.5 Zhang giant let out a scream of utter terror. "Ah, you." His words were still stuck in his throat when his body was simultaneously bisected by the 3-colored divine rainbow. From the corpse, a soul half-pitch, black and half-translucent, fled in panic. Not daring to linger for a moment, it turned and escaped into the void, attempting to flee. But Fang Chen was right before him. How could he possibly escape now? The soul was immediately restrained by the soul chains again, completely immobilized. In his despairing gaze, Fang Chen slightly curled his finger and flicked, effortlessly hooking the soul back and gripping it firmly in his palm. "Don't kill me. We are all beings of the Central Plains. I beg you, spare my life." The 4.5 giant immediately shed his earlier killing intent and begged pitifully. Fang Chen narrowed his eyes slightly, but did not act in haste. He swept his gaze across the 5.5 giants who had already turned pale with fright and were fleeing in terror, then lightly waved his finger. The tricolor divine rainbow immediately howled as it circled around once. PFFF, PFFF, PFFF. 5 giant heads shot into the sky in response. 5.5 giant souls instantly burst from their corpses, attempting to flee into the void. Fang Chen pressed his finger to his lips, silently activating Banished Immortal's intoxication. The 5 souls immediately began to waver and totter, completely losing their ability to escape. Seizing the moment, Fang Chen flung out the soul, suppressing Buddha beads, and bound the 5 souls as tightly as twisted hemp. Thus, all 6.5 giants were utterly annihilated. Far away, Fairy Zue's pupils contracted slightly as she gazed at the black-clad youth before her with a complicated expression. She seemed to have fallen into a profound daze, standing rooted to the spot for a long while, unable to recover her senses. Until Fang Chen's voice suddenly reached her ears. "Fairy, why were these half-giants pursuing you?" Fang Chen asked. That 4 Zhang half-giant had just said that he had meddled in a colossal affair. Those words could not be dismissed as mere wind past his ears. Fairy Zue's gaze gradually refocused, and she gently shook her head. She helped the old woman beside her to her feet and said slowly, "I'm not sure either. When I encountered this senior, she was being besieged by half-giants, so I intervened to save her. Yet those half-giants were hell-bent on silencing her. So it turned out she had merely acted out of righteous indignation, knowing nothing of the reason behind it." Fang Chen shifted his gaze to the 6 half-black, half-transparent souls before him, narrowing his eyes. "Speak. What exactly have I gotten myself into?" The 4 Zhang Giant hurriedly said, "We cannot say, or our souls will self-destruct." "Is that so?" Fang Chen calmly took out the fate-altering jade butterfly and said indifferently, "Not speaking is also fine." He wasn't sure whether giant souls would also disperse into black smoke like those of the ancient giants. Fang Chen grabbed one soul from the soul, suppressing Buddha beads, and tried to stuff it into a socket. The result? That giant's soul let out an utterly blood-curdling scream. Its black soul portion instantly burst apart, transforming into black smoke that drifted away. The other half was successfully absorbed entirely by the fate-altering jade butterfly. One of the sockets flickered with a faint red light. Fang Chen's face immediately showed delight. Half of a giant soul was indeed useful. This meant that by continuously slaying giants, he could produce an endless supply of heaven, connecting marrow. As for human nascent soul experts, Fang Chen would never kill them to extract their souls for refining heaven, connecting marrow unless absolutely necessary. Because they were the strength that would resist the ancient giants and protect the weak. Those human nascent souls who died by his hand were either traitors or mortal enemies. But giants were entirely different. These creatures bearing the bloodline of ancient giants, Fang Chen had never regarded them as kin. After successfully lighting up one socket, he grabbed another giant soul. The other party was terrified to the extreme. "I really can't say." Squelch. Fang Chen unhesitatingly pressed it into the fate-altering jade butterfly, successfully lighting up the second socket. Then he grabbed a third giant soul. The latter's face changed drastically, and he hastily cried out, "Stop, I'll talk." It is the heaven-conquering Grand Marshal. Who could have known that the moment he uttered the words heaven-conquering Grand Marshal, it seemed to provoke some forbidden existence from the unseen, causing his soul to explode on the spot. Fang Chen's eyes narrowed. This did not seem like a soul restriction being triggered. It more resembled the backlash from violating a sage law. A gleam flickered in his eyes as he grabbed the fourth soul form and asked, "Did a sage leave a law constraint upon you?" That soul trembled violently, not daring to utter a single word. Fang Chen said slowly, "If yes, just blink once, and I will immediately release you." The soul hastily blinked. Yet, as soon as its eyelids fell, its soul followed with a thunderous explosion. Fang Chen's heart grew solemn. Indeed, these giants were bound by a sage law. Not only was heaven-conquering Grand Marshal a taboo, but sage itself was equally forbidden. The four Zhang giant was utterly horrified and pleaded repeatedly, "Fellow Taoist, truly, you must not ask any further. If I could tell you, I would have spoken long ago. Please do not press us further." Fang Chen was equally alarmed. Since it involved a sage, he did not wish to delve deeper, lest he brought calamity upon himself. Thus he grabbed the soul of the four Zhang giant and was about to press it into the fate-altering jade butterfly. The four Zhang giant was so terrified his soul nearly fled his body, and he cried urgently, "Don't kill me. I am one of the 100 generals of Heaven's Remnant City, holding some standing. Perhaps I can be of help to you in the future." Fang Chen pondered for a moment, then retracted him. Instead, he pressed another soul into the ground. Only when all three sockets were lit did he contentedly withdraw the fate-altering jade butterfly back into the heavenly thunderstone. As for the soul of the four Zhang giant, Fang Chen sealed it within a spirit crystal. Only after completing all this did the intense pain in his legs become clearly felt. He hastily descended from the air, waiting for the medicine's effect to slowly take hold. Just then, a wisp of fragrant breeze swept by, and a fair jade-like hand extended before Fang Chen. Lying in the palm was a spirit pill with 6 pill veins, an exceedingly rare 6-grade spirit pill. One must know that the most precious heaven-shattering bead left by Venerable Heart, Sin to his true disciple, was merely a single 6-grade spirit pill. Yet this young woman, with a 5-borifice nascent soul, casually produced one. Moreover, she intended to give it to Fang Chen. Fairy Ziwei's expression was calm as she said plainly, "Use this. It's stronger than the spring-returning pill." Fang Chen showed a trace of doubt, raising his eyes to look at her. "You recognize the spring-returning pill." This was a long, lost spirit pill, recognizable only to those who had once obtained it among the 9 sects of the continent. Even in the vast Taking Great Prefecture, very few recognized it. Here in the remote Gixu Prefecture, someone could tell at a glance that what he had just taken was the spring-returning pill. Fairy Ziwei did not answer, merely stating calmly, "You saved my life. This pill is for your injuries." Fairy Ziwei gently placed the pill into Fang Chen's palm, her voice undisturbed. We are even now. Afterward, she silently returned to the old woman's side, sat cross-legged, and replenished her nascent soul energy. Fang Chen gazed at her back with a puzzled expression. He had a feeling this woman was taking excessively good care of him. Earlier, when distributing the starlight, she had given it to him first before herself and the old woman. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through his legs. With no time to ponder, he opened his mouth and swallowed the vibrant 6th-grade spirit pill. A scene that astonished Fang Chen then unfolded. His severed legs, with their bloody wounds, began regrowing bone, blood vessels, blood, and flesh at a visible speed. In just the span of 20 breaths, his legs were restored to their original state. This effect was simply heaven, defying compared to the spring-returning pill. Fang Chen stood up, cupped his fist, and said, "Thank you, Fairy, for the spirit pill." Fairy Ziwei still kept her eyes closed and said coolly, "If there's nothing else, leave Gixu Prefecture. You do not belong here." Fang Chen thought for a moment, then still asked, "I wish to inquire about a person named Yu Mingju. She should have arrived in Gixu Prefecture about 20 days ago." Fairy Ziwei opened her eyes, a trace of dawning realization flashing through them, then immediately closed them again. Her tone suddenly turned cold. "I don't know her, never heard of her. Ask someone else." Fang Chen's expression became peculiar. Why had this woman suddenly turned so cold? Just like Ling Yan, getting angry for no apparent reason. He had originally intended to ask her if she possessed any special item that could have drawn him, randomly teleported, to her side. Alas, she was already displeased, so asking would likely be futile. He could only cup his fist and say, "Then I won't disturb the fairy further. Farewell." He was just about to leave. The unconscious old woman suddenly murmured faintly, "Heavenly Abyss 7 cities. Something's amiss. Notify. Grand Libationer." Fairy Ziwei abruptly opened her eyes and urgently asked, "What has happened in the Heavenly Abyss 7 cities?" But the old woman had fallen back into a coma. Ziwei Fairy's brows were tightly furrowed, her voice filled with confusion. "Why is there no improvement in her injuries at all? Clearly, we administered a 5th-grade healing spirit pill." Fang Chen, who was about to leave, couldn't help but turn around to carefully examine the old woman's injuries. At a glance, the external injuries seemed fine. And upon closer perception, there appeared to be nothing abnormal inside her body. After a moment's thought, he took out the olfactory jade slice of the 9-fragrance stockade chief and placed it in his mouth. Immediately, various scents rushed into his nostrils. Among them, a faint, obscure aura so subtle that even he could barely detect it drifted out from the old woman's head. After a brief contemplation, Fang Chen lightly tapped his finger in the void, landing it on the old woman's forehead. A trace of thunderous power instantly surged into it. Soon strands of black mist as fine as hair, like driven off venomous snakes, wriggled out from inside the old woman's head. The old woman's face, which had been black all along, finally regained a hint of rosy color. Ziwei Fairy's eyes showed joy, and she blurted out, "You are still so." But she stopped herself mid-sentence, and then, maintaining a calm tone, said, "You have remarkable skills." Fang Chen was focused on suppressing the obscure aura and did not carefully ponder her words. He nodded casually and said, "It won't be long before she fully wakes up." After a pause, he asked with some concern, "What is this Heavenly Abyss 7 cities she mentioned earlier?" Ziwei Fairy hesitated. She originally didn't want to speak to Fang Chen again. But seeing that he had saved the old woman, she slowly spoke. The Heavenly Abyss is a vast chasm that divides the Gixu province. According to legend, the land west of the Heavenly Abyss was taken from the Celestial Realm by the ancient sages, while the land east of it was taken from the Hell Realm. These two lands were joined together, forming the Gixu province with the Heavenly Abyss as the dividing line. No wonder the atmosphere of Gixu province contained both spiritual Kai and Yin Kai simultaneously. The existence of Gixu province also corroborated the origin of the Central Plains. Truly, the ancient sages had forcibly excavated them from the Celestial Realm and the Hell Realm. Ziwei Fairy continued, the entire Gixu province was once occupied by the Dharma cultivators. It was only after the ancient giant war 1,000 years ago ended that many giants from the Central Plains could not be dealt with. Under the insistence of a certain sage, they were relocated to the eastern lands of Gixu province, while the Dharma cultivators were forced to retreat to the western side. He had once heard this history mentioned by the Supreme Elder Qin Wangxuan. She had once said that during the ancient giant war 1,000 years ago, a group of people who feared death and clung to life, in order to avoid becoming prey to the ancient giants, consumed the blood of ancient giants and evolved into giants. After the war, the Central Plains prepared to purge these traitors. A benevolent sage stepped forward and pardoned them. Unexpectedly, in Gixu province, Fang Chen heard the continuation of this history. That sage actually forced the natives who had lived in Gixu province for 10,000 years to cede half of their land to settle those traitors. So, that was why there are the Heavenly Abyss, 7 cities. Even without Ziwei Fairy explaining, Fang Chen understood. It must be that the human Dharma cultivators and half-giants had constant conflicts and frequent clashes. Therefore, the human Dharma cultivators built the Heavenly Abyss 7 cities to guard against half-giant invasions. Indeed, Ziwei Fairy continued, I do not know if it is due to the ancient giant bloodline, but half-giants are often cunning, greedy, and brutal. Hence, even with the Heavenly Abyss between them, half-giants frequently harass human Dharma cultivators, burning, killing, and plundering as a common occurrence, and even women are often violated by them. At this, Ziwei Fairy's brows furrowed deeply, and she made no effort to hide her disgust. The more renowned a woman is, the more likely she will be targeted by them. They euphemistically claim that they want to sow the excellent seeds of half-giants across this land. Hearing this, Fang Chen's eyes flashed with a cold light. That half-giants were cunning, greedy, and brutal did not surprise him, because those were precisely the traits of ancient giants. Half-giants inherited their bloodline, so naturally they would also inherit these characteristics. However, ancient giants would never violate human women, but half-giants do. Fang Chen coldly spat these beasts. If that's the case, could the disturbances in the Heavenly Abyss 7 cities be because the half-giants are stirring up trouble again? Ziwei Fairy, gazing at the 8 aperture nascent soul old woman, said in a low voice, I'm afraid it's not that simple. The Heavenly Abyss 7 cities have many human Dharma cultivator powerhouses guarding them. There are at least 28 aperture nascent soul cultivators like this old woman, and there is even a divinity transformation venerable stationed there. Yet this old woman ran out to deliver a warning and was intercepted and hunted by ancient giants at all costs. I fear what is happening in the Heavenly Abyss 7 cities is more than an ordinary disturbance. Upon hearing this, Fang Chen pondered for a moment. He said solemnly, You take her to the Imperial Observatory to see the Grand Libationer. I will head to the Heavenly Abyss 7 cities. Since the whereabouts of the Moonbright Pearl are currently unknown, I will go to the teleportation array near Tianyi City to investigate. And on the way, check on the situation at the Heavenly Abyss 7 cities. Ziwei Fairy's eyes showed complexity. After not seeing him for so long, Fang Chen was still the same, always ready to right wrongs, his righteous spirit undiminished. After thinking it over, she picked up the old woman and said, I'll go with you, as for the Imperial Observatory. She parted her red lips and gently exhaled a jade sphere covered in hazy starlight, saying, Master, there is trouble at the Heavenly Abyss 7 cities. Please inform the Grand Libationer. With that, the starlight jade sphere burrowed into the void and flew away. Ziwei Fairy summoned a cloud and said, There is no time to lose, let's go. What kind of communication method was that, able to travel through the void? This Ziwei Fairy before him was truly mysterious. Fang Chen nodded, leaped onto the cloud, and sat cross-legged. Taking advantage of the travel time, he decisively brought out that Thunder Mountain. While escaping, in the spatial tunnel, he had used some of it, but there was still plenty left. Enough to fully replenish the Heavenly Abyss Heart. Previously, when the Heavenly Abyss Heart was activated at full power, it enabled the yin-yang heaven to successfully block the dying strike of the 3 declines of the heaven, man. Now, if he fully charged the Heavenly Abyss Heart again and unleashed an attack-type Thunder Divine ability, its power should be comparable to a strike from a divinity transform, Mari, on Venerable at the first decline of the heaven, man, combined with the great derivation sword formation. With his current 8 aperture nascent soul, he could use it twice in succession. If he encountered immense danger, he would have the power to protect himself. As the last wisp of thunder power was absorbed, the entire Thunder Mountain was completely exhausted. The Heavenly Abyss Heart was once again fully replenished. Fang Chen felt slightly reassured and opened his eyes to look around. Towering stone steels that reached into the clouds swept past on either side. Fang Chen looked down at the ground in surprise. It was a vast cemetery without end in sight. Within the garden there were countless tombs. Some of them had enormous steels thrusting into the clouds, but many more were small. Some tombs had even collapsed and rotted away under the erosion of time. With so many tombs, it should feel eerie and gloomy. Yet this place was filled with a radiant, righteous aura, leaving one utterly fearless. Some small creatures were even running and frolicking among the tombs, creating an exceptionally peaceful atmosphere. What exactly is this place? Ziwei Fairy was also gazing at the boundless land below, her beautiful eyes filled with an indescribable reverence. She took a deep breath and slowly said, "This is the cemetery of Gixu Province. This cemetery was first established 1,000 years ago during that earth-shaking ancient giant war. Those who rest here are all human martyrs who heroically sacrificed their lives in the brutal battle to exterminate the ancient giants. Among them are divinity transformation venerables with heaven, reaching cultivation, great cultivators of the nascent soul realm, and even some cultivators with only core formation realm cultivation." Fang Chen gazed into the distance, looking at the endless, densely packed tombs that stretched to the edge of the world, utterly uncountable. An indescribable and sublime reverence surged spontaneously from the depths of his heart. It must be known, an adult ancient giant's cultivation level started at the terrifying mid-nascent soul stage. How desperate must the humans of Gixu Province 1,000 years ago have been pushed, to the point that even cultivators at the mere core formation realm were forced to be sent to that bloody battlefield. In that extremely brutal war, how did these martyrs grit their teeth and endure those final moments before dawn? Thoughts surged within him, and overcome with emotion, he immediately adopted a solemn expression. Cupping his hands respectfully, he bowed deeply from afar towards the resting place of those heroic souls. The hard-won piece of the Central Plains continent today was entirely bought with their lives and their burning, fervent blood. They deserve the eternal reverence of every descendant for all generations. The two of them stood in silent mourning for the time it takes to drink a cup of tea. Only then did they rise into the sky and fly over this cemetery, so vast it seemed almost boundless. Suddenly, a vast, pitch-black chasm, so deep it seemed to devour all light, viciously stretched across the center of the land. That was the perilous region where two continents joined the heavenly abyss. Then, on the boundlessly vast land west of the heavenly abyss, a colossal city of awe-inspiring grandeur suddenly burst into their vision. Ziwei Fairy's gaze sharpened, stating solemnly, "There lies one of the 7 cities of the heavenly abyss, shaking Light City." Fang Chen's heart chilled, his expression subtly shifting to vigilance. The spiritual power within him circulated ceaselessly, ready to respond to any eventuality. But after the two flew above shaking Light City, they couldn't help but slightly furrow their brows. Looking down from the high altitude, the entire city was bustling with traffic and streams of people, the clamor soaring into the sky. This was a scene of absolute peace and prosperity. Where was any trace of the panic and desolation from a half-giant attack? Ziwei Fairy retracted her gaze, a contemplative look on her face. Could it be that only one of the cities has been affected? The 7 cities of the heavenly abyss, forming a mutual defensive line, were strategic fortresses guarding this region. Their communications should be extremely close-knit. There is absolutely no reason that one city could suffer a great calamity while the other 6 remain utterly oblivious. Yet the shaking Light City before their eyes was indeed peaceful and serene. If they wanted to uncover the truth, it seemed they would have to visit other cities and investigate thoroughly. Having made up their minds, the two no longer delayed. They deployed movement techniques and successively visited the other 6 cities: Celestial Pivot City, Celestial Rotating City, Celestial Pearl City, Celestial Balance City, Jade Eating, Tube City, and finally, Opener of Heat City. At this moment, the two stood erect, hovering above Opener of Heat City, their faces filled with deep confusion. Throughout this investigation, including the city beneath their feet, Opener of Heat City, every one of the 7 cities of the heavenly abyss was bustling and full of life, a scene of great vitality. There wasn't the slightest trace of ever having been invaded by half-giants. Fang Chen's brow tightly furrowed, he said, bewildered. Could it be that the warning of change in the 7 cities that old Senior uttered on her deathbed refers to a calamity that hasn't truly happened yet? Ziwei Fairy herself was also somewhat dazed. After all, the old woman had been gravely injured, on the verge of death, yet still thought of nothing else, using her last breath to urge them to hurry to the Imperial Observatory. If nothing had happened, that would be far too unreasonable, wouldn't it? She couldn't help lowering her head to look at the unconscious old woman she had been cradling in her arms. Without the woman waking, no matter how many questions she had, she could not ask them now. Fang Chen rubbed his chin with his fingers, pondering, this situation doesn't make sense. If nothing truly happened, why were those half-giants so desperate to kill me and silence the news, even at the risk of being slain by my sword? He slowly closed his eyes, focused, and began to carefully scrutinize every detail like unraveling a silk cocoon, searching for any oversight. Suddenly, he faintly sensed something, his spirit shook, and he abruptly turned his divine sense inward, inspecting his nascent soul. As he looked, his expression instantly changed, a flicker of alarm crossing his face. Ziwei Fairy beside him noticed the abnormality and asked in surprise, "What is it?" Fang Chen's expression turned exceedingly odd. He turned to Ziwei Fairy, "Quick, check your own nascent soul power." Ziwei Fairy, though puzzled, saw his solemn expression and immediately did as instructed, inspecting inwardly. The next moment, she was equally shocked and cried out, My nascent soul power has been silently drained by 20%. On Fang Chen's side, his own nascent soul power had also evaporated by 10%, seemingly out of thin air. But the problem was, given their minor exertion from traveling, such a massive depletion was utterly impossible. Fang Chen's eyes narrowed, a bone-chilling glint flashing in them. It seems the 7 cities of the heavenly abyss have indeed undergone some bizarre change we have yet to perceive. To silently and unknowingly consume an entire 10th of his nascent soul power, what terrifying means. This method was far too horrifying. His cold gaze swept the surroundings, finally settling on the opener of Heat City beneath his feet. He said in a deep voice, "Come, let us first enter the city and carefully interrogate the people within. If we truly can't find any answers, then we shall simply wait here until this old senior awakens and then decide." Ziwei Fairy nodded, and then together with Fang Chen, they concealed their auras and gracefully descended into opener of Heat City. The city was still mostly inhabited by mortal residents. Along the streets, hawkers and peddlers shouted their wares, laborers and vendors wove through the markets, the cacophony of cries mingling with the laughter of children, a noisy scene. Having not set foot in such a bustling mortal city for a long time, Fang Chen, standing on the street, couldn't help but feel a moment of mental disorientation. The last time he had entered such a mortal city was with Yu Mingzhu, when they went to Sunset City in the northern frontier. Now, when he thought back, it was already an event from over half a year ago, like a blink of an eye. Meanwhile, Ziwei Fairy, quietly standing at his side, was subtly turning her head to watch Fang Chen walking shoulder to shoulder with her. Deep in her heart, an uncontrollable, bitter pang of sorrow arose. She had never imagined that a day would come when she could walk with Fang Chen like this, side by side among the endless stream of people, just like ordinary people. If only this day could have come sooner, how wonderful that would be. Unfortunately, it was far too late now. Just as her thoughts wandered, a gurgling sound rang out. A crudely stitched leather ball suddenly rolled over, bouncing along, until it came to a stop right at Fang Chen's feet. Fang Chen followed the sound and saw 3 children, about 5 or 6 years old, dressed in coarse short shirts and trousers, chasing after the ball and running toward him. Seeing the ball stop before a stranger, the boy in the middle of the 3 timidly stepped forward. Around his neck hung a brass longevity lock, polished smooth and shiny from much handling, and on his head was a cute little tiger hat. His eyes were large, but his little nose was flat, making him look rather amusing. He looked fearfully at the tall, black-clad Fang Chen before him and asked in a voice as tiny as a mosquito, "Big brother, could you give me back my ball?" Seeing this, Fang Chen's face broke into a gentle smile. He bent down, picked up the ball, and handed it to the little boy. "Don't be afraid, here you go." The little boy, like a startled little mouse, quickly snatched the ball and, without looking back, ran off on his tiny feet with his 2 friends. Watching the young backs disappear into the distance, Fang Chen couldn't help but chuckle, sighing, "Truly the most carefree age." After saying this, Fang Chen suddenly froze. For some reason, he felt that this scene of children chasing a ball was somehow strangely familiar. Meanwhile, Ziwei Fairy hurriedly pushed aside the chaotic thoughts in her mind. As luck would have it, she noticed a young man in white robes with an ancient bronze sword on his back, possessing core formation cultivation, passing by. She quickly stepped forward and politely asked, "Fellow Taoist, please hold a moment. Might I trouble you with a question?" The white-robed youth halted. His eyes landed on the graceful figure of Ziwei Fairy, and immediately a lecherous smile appeared. He directly reached out, brazenly attempting to touch Ziwei Fairy's chin, even laughing frivolously, of course. "Let's find a quiet, secluded place where I can slowly tell you everything." Ouch! A piercing scream suddenly erupted from the white-robed youth. Fang Chen had struck like lightning, firmly twisting the youth's frivolous wrist. Ziwei Fairy's face showed a flash of admiration as she praised, "Young Master Fang, what swift reflexes." The youth's slight had come without warning, even she hadn't reacted yet, but Fang Chen had already intercepted him. Fang Chen, however, shoved the white-robed youth stumbling backward, then slightly furrowed his brows, staring at his own hand with a face full of confusion. It was not that his reflexes were quick. Rather, it was as if his body acted on instinct. Even before that scoundrel could make a move, a premonition had already risen in his heart, and his body struck first. This feeling something was very wrong. Fang Chen had always been meticulous and extremely attentive to detail. Others might have let it slide without a second thought, but he felt this matter was anything but ordinary. This city is indeed deeply problematic. Fang Chen's gaze instantly sharpened as he swept his vigilant eyes across the surrounding streets and passers-by. Yet no matter how he looked, he could detect no flaw. Everything seemed perfectly real and normal. Fairy Ziwei could not help but furrow her delicate brows. For some reason, a subtle sense of dissonance also began to stir faintly in her heart. Just moments ago, a bizarre image had flashed through her mind. In that scene, after Fang Chen returned the ball to the child, he had said, the most carefree age indeed. As if she could foresee the future. Fang Chen gazed at the endless stream of people before him, mused for a moment, and said, "Let us wander further and ask a few more different people. If something truly happened in this city, it is impossible for everyone to be completely oblivious." Having made their plan, the two proceeded along with the crowd. Whenever they encountered a martial artist with cultivation along the way, whether at the foundation establishment stage or nascent soul stage, they would stop them and ask in detail. Yet, without exception, everyone they questioned wore expressions of blank confusion. Finally, they arrived before a grand and imposing mansion. Fairy Ziwei looked up and said, "By regulation, this city should have a city lord of Atorifice, nascent soul cultivation, safeguarding it. Let us go in and see." With their current cultivation, they quickly gained an audience at the city lord's mansion. They were led inside and appeared within a spacious, brightly lit reception hall. The city lord was a middle-aged man with a fair, beardless face and a mild, refined demeanor. Like other cultivators, he bore a set of shackles on his back designed to restrain himself. Should his mind fail and he fell into madness, these shackles would activate automatically and instantly knock him unconscious. He carefully scrutinized Fang Chen, then revealed an approving smile and said, "You are young, yet you have already reached the Atorifice, nascent soul stage. I never imagined that a remote place like Taking Great State could nurture such a prodigious genius as yourself. Truly unexpected." Fang Chen saluted with clasped hands, neither humble nor arrogant, and said, "You flatter me, my lord." This junior dare not accept such praise. "To be honest, the reason we have boldly visited your lordship is to inquire whether anything unusual or strange has occurred in Kaiyong City recently." Hearing this, the city lord could not help but stroke his beard and furrow his brows, pondering intently unusual strange events. "Our Kaiyong City has been quite peaceful and prosperous in recent years. Not to mention earth-shaking major incidents, even fights between cultivators in public, have never occurred." "I wonder, fellow Fang, what specific kind of strange event are you referring to?" Upon hearing this, Fang Chen's frown deepened. As a powerhouse at the Atorifice nascent soul stage, his divine sense perception far exceeded that of ordinary cultivators. In this Kaiyong City, even the slightest disturbance should have been detected by this city lord. Yet now, he too appeared completely unaware. The sense of bewilderment in Fang Chen's heart intensified. What exactly was wrong with this city? Seeing the two remain silent, the city lord smiled warmly again and said, "If the two of you have no other urgent matters, why not stay in my mansion for a few days? It would allow me to fulfill my duties as host." Fang Chen politely declined at once. "I appreciate your lordship's kind offer, but the two of us truly have pressing matters and cannot stay long. We shall take our leave." As he spoke, he rose to his feet. At the same time, his cold, sharp gaze casually swept over the luxurious furnishings in the reception hall. Then, with tightly knitted brows, he turned and strode out of the hall. Fairy Ziwei also sighed softly, catching up to him and saying, "Forget it. Perhaps we truly were alarmed over nothing. It was just a misunderstanding." With an apologetic expression, Fairy Ziwei said gently, "Young Master Fang, I am truly sorry for having kept you so long. You still need to search for someone. Do not waste any more time. Let us part here." Since there was no major trouble in the heavenly abyss 7 cities overall, he no longer needed to devote his mind to it. He would let the people from Giksu Prefecture investigate on their own. He had to hurry and find the moon pearl. Those half-giants were nothing but beasts who would violate exceptional women. And the moon pearl was, of all things, a beautiful maiden who forever bore the lovely face of an 18-year-old. Every extra day she stayed in Tianyi City, the danger would multiply several times over. Fang Chen cupped his hands to Fairy Ziwei and declared, "We shall meet again, farewell." After saying this, he subconsciously furrowed his brows again. An inexplicable sense of familiarity suddenly crept into his heart. This scene, he felt, he had experienced many times before, as if he had bid farewell to Fairy Ziwei countless times like this. Yet this was clearly their first parting. Something was off. Something must have happened to him. Many things were riddled with strangeness. Fang Chen closed his eyes, and his mind raced. Suddenly, he recalled the calendar hanging on the wall of the city lord's mansion. His eyes slowly opened, a glimmer of sharp light spreading within them. He suddenly cried out, "Fairy Ziwei, what day is it today?" Fairy Ziwei answered without hesitation, "The 3rd day of the 12th month. Why do you suddenly ask?" Fang Chen's eyes abruptly widened, a trace of shock spreading across his face. He said in a deep voice, "I just saw the calendar in the city lord's mansion. It showed today as the 1st day of the 12th month. Fairy Ziwei was slightly stunned, then replied, "Perhaps the city lord's calendar was simply forgotten to be torn." "That's nothing, right?" Fang Chen's eyes were filled with gravity. He had already begun to guess a few things. He immediately flashed to a stall selling paintings, calligraphy, and calendars. On the stall, an unfolded calendar also clearly displayed 1st day of the 12th month. Fairy Ziwei rushed over to look and couldn't help but freeze. What's going on? Could it be that everyone in Kaiyong City forgot to tear their calendars? Or? Her beautiful countenance drastically changed, and a thought she could hardly believe suddenly surged in her mind. Could it be that the Kaiyong City we are seeing is from 2 days ago? Fang Chen nodded gravely. A mighty figure forcibly turned back the time of Kaiyong City by 2 days. Fairy Ziwei drew a horrified gasp, her beautiful eyes instantly contracting to the extreme. To reverse time for the entire Kaiyong City, one would at least have to be at the sage stage, right? She covered her red lips beneath the mask and said in astonishment, without evidence, "Such words must not be spoken recklessly." Fang Chen's eyes flickered with keen light. "The evidence is on us. You, like me, must have felt déjà vu about certain scenes, right?" Fairy Ziwei was greatly shocked. "You also have such a feeling." She had originally thought it was all her own illusion. Fang Chen continued, "Also, when I blocked that white-robed youth's hand for you, it was not my conscious will, but a memory of my body." As he spoke, his brow furrowed again. "What I don't understand is why a portion of our nascent soul power has disappeared." "How did this happen?" A calm voice emanated leisurely from Fang Chen's embrace. "That is because the two of you have traveled back and forth between Yeguang City and Kaiyong City over 100 times. Your nascent soul power was consumed in this way." "What?" He had already gone back and forth between Yeguang City and Kaiyong City over 100 times. Fang Chen immediately took out the mirror and stared at the purple-crimson princess sitting calmly within, eyes flickering. "You mean we are trapped in a temporal loop?" The purple-crimson princess said calmly, "I knew that this temporal loop could not deceive you. You were bound to notice eventually." After a pause, a star-like ripple pattern emerged on her forehead, and she continued indeed. A mighty powerhouse forcibly altered the time of the heavenly abyss, 7 cities using G-laws. They turned the cities back to the 1st day of the 12th month, repeating endlessly. "The two of you have been in this temporal loop ever since you entered the airspace above Yeguang City." Such words struck terror into the heart. Yet it was precisely because of this that it explained the sense of déjà vu he and Ziwei Fairy had about their surroundings, and also why a portion of the nascent soul power had vanished. A drop of cold sweat slid down Fang Chen's forehead. "How long have we been trapped in this time cycle?" Zhejiang Princess said indifferently, 7 days. Every 2 hours, time in the heavenly abyss, 7 cities regresses. You return to the state when you entered Yeguang City, then arrive at Kaiyong City, investigate for a while, and when the time is up, you regress back above Yeguang City again. Over and over, 100 times in total. Judging from the consumption of nascent soul power, 7 days matched perfectly. He had been unknowingly trapped in the heavenly abyss 7 cities for a full 7 days. If not for his meticulous attention to detail, noticing the various abnormalities, would he have been trapped in this time cycle forever? Zhejiang Princess pinched her fingers and said, Time is about to regress. Next time, you may not be able to see through the flaw in the timeline. This time, it was purely by accident that he saw the almanac on the wall of the City Lord's mansion, which made him realize the time discrepancy. Next time, there might not be such luck. What to do? He had to escape this time cycle immediately, or there would be trouble. But this was likely the work of a sage. How could he break free? Zhejiang Princess slowly rose, the time origin star on her forehead spinning faster. Her tone carried a hint of schadenfreude. How about we make a deal? You release me, and I will use the time origin to break the time regression here, granting you freedom. She had been waiting for this opportunity all along. Now it had finally arrived. Only her time origin could break the time regression. Fang Chen had no other choice. Dream on, Fang Chen refused resolutely. He would rather be trapped here to death with Zhejiang Princess than release this great threat back. Zhejiang Princess shrugged, her golden eyes showing a playful look. I must remind you that Sage will not let the time regression continue indefinitely. When he cancels it all, he will inevitably take action personally to silence you. Do you have the confidence to survive in the hands of a sage? Fang Chen's heart suddenly trembled. Time was pressing. But he would never be coerced by Zhejiang Princess. His gaze shifted, landing on Zue Fairy. He said, Zue Fairy, I need you to do something. Only then can we possibly break the time regression. Zue Fairy was still lost in a daze. Even now, she was somewhat bewildered, unable to accept that she had been trapped in this bizarre time regression for 7 whole days. Hearing this, she said blankly, Speak. Fang Chen pointed at himself. Hit me. Zue Fairy was stunned. You want me to hit you? Fang Chen nodded. Yes, preferably hit hard and curse while hitting. That would be best. Since this time cycle was caused by a sage law, if he activated the Heavenly Eye Sage Law, the two laws would violently collide. Could the time regression still persist? Zue Fairy shook her head. Without reason, why would I hit and curse you? Fang Chen said, This concerns whether we can break the time regression. If you really can't bear to hit and curse, then imagine me as the person you hate most, and you will be able to strike. The person she hated most. Zue Fairy gazed at Fang Chen before her, her expression growing complicated. She slowly nodded. You asked me to hit you. Don't regret it afterward. Fang Chen replied, Hit and curse at ease. I will never blame you. Since that was the case. Zue Fairy recalled Fang Chen's various deeds, and a grudge welled up from the depths of her heart. Her fist suddenly clenched, brimming with the power of the 5 apertures' nascent soul. Flames of anger flickering in her eyes, she punched toward Fang Chen's chest, shouting coquettishly, Fang Chen, you bastard. Fang Chen was instantly dumbfounded. Ha! I told you to pretend to see me as your most hated person, but how did it become like you really hate me? But never mind. The more real it seemed, the better. Only then could it activate the sage inscription. Indeed. Just as Zue Fairy's fist was about to strike Fang Chen's chest, the familiar power of the sage inscription suddenly activated. Zue Fairy's eyes, originally spewing flames, instantly brimmed with tenderness. The fist that was punching toward Fang Chen instead hooked around his neck. Beneath the mask, her enticing red lips actively kissed Fang Chen's lips, and she breathed like an orchid. Fang Chen, I like you. I've always liked you, you know. The next moment, Zue Fairy suddenly came to her senses. She stiffened all over, then let out a scream that nearly pierced eardrums. Ah, what have I done? She shoved Fang Chen away, blushing from the ears down to her cheeks, her eyes so embarrassed they seemed about to squeeze out water. She simply couldn't believe that she had just hugged and kissed Fang Chen and said such shameful words. Fang Chen, however, ignored her, his brows furrowed as he warily surveyed the surroundings. At first there was only a faint sound of rushing water, but gradually it grew louder and more intense, until finally it became a thunderous roar of torrents. It was as if a great river long held back by a dam had finally reached the moment of release, the long, accumulated floodwaters bursting forth with a mighty roar. Fang Chen's heart leaped with sudden joy. There was no mistaking this feeling. The time that had enveloped the heavenly abyss 7 cities had been fully released. The heavenly abyss 7 cities would no longer be trapped on the first day of the 12th month. Instead, they were completely synchronized with the real, flowing time of the outside world. As the sound of water intensified, the surrounding space trembled along, gradually revealing its original, rightful appearance. Yet, when everything became clear, Fang Chen felt as if he'd been struck by lightning, turning to stone on the spot. The familiar calligraphy and painting stall beside him had collapsed to the ground. Several scattered scrolls were soaked in black, foul blood. The skinny boss, who had been leaning against the wall, basking in the sun just moments before now, had only 2 extremely decomposed legs remaining, still standing in place. The rotting flesh was crawling with dense clusters of white maggots. A stench so thick and suffocating it hit him square in the face. But this was only the beginning. As the surrounding spaces successively synchronized with the present time, they revealed their truest forms one by one. The vendor pushing a cart selling goods had long vanished, leaving behind only pools of foul blood and rotting chunks of flesh. His cot lay overturned by the roadside, silent and still. The bustling crowd that had just been flowing like woven threads vanished without a trace in an instant, leaving only severed limbs and scattered flesh, and flies buzzing around them. The once orderly houses along the road had turned into ruins, with many people buried alive within, their eyes still open in death, dying with unresolved grievances. Looking out, almost no intact buildings remained in the entire Kaiyong city. The surroundings were utterly dead silent. Apart from the buzzing of flies and the stench of decay billowing skyward, no sign of life could be felt anywhere. The entire Kaiyong city had been completely wiped out. Just then, Fang Chen suddenly felt something sticky on his hand. He looked down and saw that his right hand was covered in black, dirty blood. His heart lurched, and he looked up toward the distance of the street. A blood-stained leather ball lay quietly in a corner. Next to the ball, there was another ball. It was a small head wearing a tiger hat. Beside the head lay a blood-stained longevity lock. Fang Chen's pupils violently contracted, losing all focus, staring fixedly at that small head, stunned on the spot. In his mind instantly surfaced the image of that shy little boy, his innocent look when he'd asked for the ball during their sparring. "Erp!" Ziwei Fairy suddenly bent over and vomited. Her whole body trembled uncontrollably, her eyes filled with horrified shock. Everyone in the city was dead. Her voice quavered uncontrollably. What exactly happened here? Zhejiang, princess, gazed at the scattered limbs and broken bones. This scene was not unfamiliar to her. Her golden slit eyes narrowed slightly, and she said coldly, "They were eaten." "What?" Fang Chen snapped back to his senses, his face full of shock. Wasn't it only the ancient giants who ate people? Wait. He instantly recalled the group of half-giants who had intercepted them on the road, trying to silence them. Fang Chen's expression turned ice cold. Could it be that all of this was eaten by half-giants? Zhejiang Princess showed a thoughtful look, slowly saying, "I have never studied half-giants, so I don't know." Fang Chen said no more, first stuffing the mirror back into his embrace. Then he took out the soul of the four, and a half-yang giant, his eyes turning into 2 icy caverns that spewed bone, chilling coldness. "Tell me what happened here." The four and a half-yang giant looked around, and his face instantly twisted in shock. You actually broke the time reversal of this place." Fang Chen's voice boomed like spring thunder as he barked, "Speak." The four and a half-yang giant shuddered all over in fright, gulped hard, and hastily said, There is a half-giant in the Dharma manifestation realm. He devoured the people of several cities. To cover up the truth, he sealed the entire 7 cities of Heaven's abyss into a time reversal, to deceive others, planning to frame the ancient giants after they descended. Ziwei Fairy staggered back a step. She looked at the miserable scene on the ground, especially the innocent little boy who died tragically, tears streaming down her face, her delicate body trembling uncontrollably. Why did he do this? The four and a half-yang giant averted his gaze, not daring to answer. Fang Chen's eyes flashed with icy light, and from his forehead suddenly shot out a soul-piercing thorn, fiercely striking into the giant's soul. The four and a half-yang giant let out a rending howl. I'll talk. He pointed fearfully at the sky, saying, "The great hunt of the heavenly realm has begun." That half-giant in the Dharma manifestation realm he wants, to imitate his ancestors and learn to hunt. Fang Chen's eyes were full of coldness, imitating ancestors. You half-giants were born in the Middle Earth, grew up in the Middle Earth, yet you regard the ancient giants who devour us from the Middle Earth as your ancestors. The four and a half-yang giant trembled violently and quickly waved his hands. This is his personal act. It does not represent our Heaven's Remnant city. We are still willing to fight against the ancient giants. The reason we covered it up was fear that if this spread, it would damage the reputation of Heaven's Remnant city, and even more, affect the alliance between our Heaven's Remnant city and Myriad Stars Mountain. Fang Chen slowly raised his head to gaze at the horizon. In his chest, it seemed a volcano, ready to erupt, was suppressed. Then, how did your Heaven's Remnant city deal with this Dharma manifestation realm half-giant? The 4.5 Jiang giant didn't dare meet Fang Chen's eyes and said guiltily, the city lord said. Nurturing a Dharma manifestation realm is not easy. Keep him, let him atone for his sins on the battlefield. Fang Chen laughed uproariously toward the sky, his face filled with raging fury, so angry that laughter was his only outlet. He devoured the people of several cities, committed such heinous crimes, and you let him off with a slap on the wrist. You don't solve the problem, but instead eliminate those who discover it, even to the point of silencing them at any cost. He abruptly pointed at the unconscious old woman, a trace of chilling madness flickering in his eyes. Fang Chen was truly enraged. When Yao Yu killed so many disciples of the 9 sects at Boundary Mountain, he had not been this furiously angry. Because that battle was a war between humans and demons, and both sides had their own standpoints. Yao Yu, standing on the demon race's standpoint, was not to be blamed.
What?
This half-giant in the Dharma manifestation realm actually recognized the ancient giants as his ancestors, and even wanted to imitate their great hunt, slaughtering and devouring people of entire cities. Even that was not enough, yet Heaven's Remnant city still dared to shield him. Shielding him was one thing, but they even wanted to root out and utterly eliminate those who brought the news. This is absolutely outrageous. Fang Chen's voice dripped with murderous intent. Where is that beast? The 4.5 Jiang giant said in a trembling voice, "I already returned to Heaven's Remnant city and has been imprisoned." Fang Chen laughed angrily. Imprisonment is all. Did the people of several cities die in vain? Lead the way. The 4.5 Jiang giant asked with even more guilt. Go where? Fang Chen's eyes were icy cold, of course, to kill him. I want him to be unable to live, unable to die. As he spoke, he took out a black jade bottle, within which terrifying soul flames were rising, and a curled-up soul was constantly letting out miserable howls under the scorching fire. This was the very bottle that the heart, Sin Venerable, used to torment his own father. Fang Chen flicked his finger, flipping open the bottle cap. The soul of the heart, Sin Venerable's biological father, trapped for countless years, immediately rushed out as if fleeing, vanishing into the void. Fang Chen's forehead quickly shot out a soul, piercing thorn. Only a scream that was suddenly cut short came from the void, and then the soul was instantly struck so hard that it scattered to oblivion. Fang Chen's killing intent was chilling. This jade bottle will be that beast's final resting place. He never tortured his enemies, he always granted them a swift end. But this Dharma manifestation realm half-giant does not deserve death, he only deserves eternal suffering. Ziwei Fairy, upon hearing this, quickly wiped away her tears and said anxiously, Fang Chen, don't be rash. Heaven's Remnant city is full of experts, with 10 masters in the Dharma manifestation realm. The city lord is a top-tier body refiner in the 5 aspects realm. Wait for my master to come. Fang Chen soared into the air, saying solemnly, no need to wait. 7 days have already passed. If your master could receive the message, he would have come long ago. Barring accidents, the jade sphere that Ziwei Fairy sent into the void has already been intercepted. Now we cannot rely on Myriad Stars Mountain, nor can we rely on the Imperial Astronomy Bureau. He can only rely on his own people. Fang Chen, summoned with his palm, and a token condensed from thunder immediately appeared. This was given to him by his godmother, Compassionate Mirror Venerable, when they parted. It was said that if he crushed this token, no matter where he was, she would immediately come to his aid. Without hesitation, Fang Chen crushed the thunder token fiercely. A streak of lightning from it instantly burst out, sinking into Fang Chen's forehead and forming a dazzling thunder mark. The remaining lightning arcs turned into a radiating ripple that vanished into the void. Such an omnidirectional transmission method, no one could intercept it. Having done all this, Fang Chen slowly turned around. He looked at the utterly tragic, deathly silent city below, raised his palm, and suddenly condensed a 10,000 Jiang thunder sword woven from red and pale lightning. Fang Chen flew outside the city, held the purple sword, and made a horizontal slash across the earth, forcibly severing the entire Kaiyong city from the ground. The soul of the forehand. A half-Jiang giant gasped sharply, horrified. What are you doing? Fang Chen said nothing. His figure flashed, and he burrowed into the ground. Immediately after, a heaven-shattering, earth-splitting roar erupted, and the entire Kaiyong city was literally yanked up from the earth. Fang Chen, supporting the heavy city with one hand and gripping the purple sword with the other, said with icy eyes, I shall demand a bloody reckoning for the dead. The forehand, a half-Zhang giant gulped wildly, looking up at the immense city blotting out the sky above him, his heart chilling over and over. This time the heaven, conquering Grand Marshal, has really torn the heavens asunder. Fang Chen, carrying Kaiyang City in hand, traversed the heavenly abyss, stepped onto the eastern land, and hurtled toward heaven's remnant city. Ziwei Fairy's eyes were full of complexity as she murmured softly, "Back then at Boundary Mountain, it was also like this for the fallen disciples of the 9 sects that he charged. Into the demon race in fury, right, this time I will accompany him." She fiercely bit the tip of her tongue, spat out a mist of blood, and sprinkled it over the ruins of Kaiyang City. The blood mist quickly condensed, forming a shocking line of large characters. It read, "Heaven's remnant city, blood debt must be paid in blood." The breaking of the time reversal here would cause temporal upheaval, which would surely alert the Grand Libationer, the Myriad Stars Mountain Lord, and that mysterious old man. They would rush to this place, and the words on the ground were a clue left for them. After doing this, she caught up with Fang Chen and charged toward Heaven's remnant city together. Now let us turn to another matter. Meanwhile, deep in the eastern land, there was an immense, boundless city built of white bones, stretching across the horizon. In the center of the city, a spacious and luxurious huge white bone palace stood. Inside the palace, a giant 5 zhang tall, covered in purple veins, was reclining on a luxurious bed covered in beast skins. He held in his hand a blood-soaked human woman. The woman's bones had been crushed all over, and the divine ring at the back of her head was shattered and broken. She hung limp like a wet noodle, her face showing intense agony. This was precisely the human race's spirit transformation venerable, who guarded the 7 cities of Heaven's Abyss. For some reason, she failed to protect the 7 cities of Heaven's Abyss, and instead fell into the hands of this half-giant, the 5 zhang half. Giant smirked teasingly. The guardian of the 7 cities of Heaven's Abyss does have some charm. Once the ancient giant bloodline in me cools down and my body can shrink, I will savor you properly. A youth in luxurious clothes, of normal human size, strode into the palace. He glanced at the human woman, frowned slightly, and ordered indifferently, "Zhengshan, for now, publicly claim that you are imprisoned. Keep a low profile, don't let anyone know." Heaven's remnant city has 10 grand marshals at the Dharma Idol realm, and the one before them is none other than the Heaven, conquering Grand Marshal. He slowly rose to his feet and said respectfully, "Heaven, conquering greets the young city lord." Young city lord need not worry. With the sage intervening, even if the heavenly king himself came, he wouldn't know about the matters of Heaven's Abyss 7 cities. Even if by a long shot they did, what then? This is our giant's Heaven's remnant city. Could those humans possibly dare to attack? This young man in splendid attire was none other than the young city lord. He was handsome with narrow eyes, and a faint, almost non-existent smile always played on his lips. He narrowed his eyes and said coldly, "The alliance between me and the violet myrtle fairy is not to be disrupted by anyone. If because of you, our Heaven's remnant city loses the trust of the Myriad Stars Mountain, and the marriage pact is affected, you do not want to know the consequences." The Heaven, conquering Grand Marshal grinned widely and said, "Young city lord, rest assured, I won't spoil your good thing. I heard that Violet Myrtle Fairy's true appearance is breathtakingly beautiful, like a celestial maiden descending to the mortal world. Young city lord, you are blessed with such romantic fortune." A wicked glint flashed in the young city lord's narrow eyes as he slowly spoke. "The Lord of Myriad Stars Mountain, in order to ally with us giants to jointly resist the ancient NT Giants, has arranged for his only true disciple, the heir of Myriad Stars Mountain, to be betrothed to me. He wants to end the strife between the eastern and western lands through marriage and unite against our common enemy. Since he's willingly offering his precious disciple to me, I certainly won't be polite. I will sow my seed vigorously upon this foremost beauty of Myriad Stars Mountain." The Heaven, conquering Grand Marshal laughed heartily. "These Dharma cultivators are a pitiful lot, ceding their lands for us to enjoy, offering their women for us to defile, and ye begging us for peace, a bunch of utterly spineless wretches." Just as they were mocking suddenly, a series of rumbling sounds came from outside Heaven's remnant city. A short half-giant rushed in frantically, exclaiming in terror, "Something terrible has happened. Young city lord Heaven, conquering Grand Marshal. A human carrying a city on his back has come to our Heaven's remnant city, saying he wants to settle accounts with the Heaven, conquering Grand Marshal." Dragging a city. The young city lord and the Heaven, conquering Grand Marshal's expressions both darkened. The Heaven, conquering Grand Marshal, shoved the female venerable into the cloth bag at his waist and sneered, "Who dares to be so audacious, coming openly to Heaven's remnant city Oh, settle accounts with a Dharma idol realm expert. This is utterly lawless. I want to see which human venerable it is. The young city lord raised a hand to stop him and said gravely, "Don't show yourself. You're supposed to be in confinement right now. I'll go handle this." A flash of viciousness passed through his eyes. To openly come to Heaven's remnant city to cause trouble. What does this human venerable take Heaven's remnant city for? If he doesn't get an explanation today, he can't forget about leaving here unscathed. He immediately put his hands behind his back and took a step forward. His entire figure appeared in the sky above Heaven's remnant city, as if by teleportation. He saw a massive solitary city being carried by a black, clothed youth, rumbling with earth-shaking noise as it rolled towards Heaven's remnant city. The young city lord took one look at the black, clothed youth's cultivation level and couldn't help but laugh angrily. "I thought it was some divine being with 3 heads and 6 RMS, but it's just an ant at the nascent soul realm, daring to run wild in my Heaven's remnant city." He sat back, and 2 half-giants whose strength had reached the 9 apertures level came carrying a golden throne. The young city lord had just settled down and sat firmly on the throne. At the same time, a cup of rare spiritual tea that could enhance cultivation at the late nascent soul stage was reverently presented to him with both hands. He held the teacup, gently blew on the hot steam, and without even glancing at Fang Chen, said indifferently, "Heaven's remnant city does not permit anyone to be more arrogant than me. Within 10 breaths I want to see his head." Before him, a squad of 10 half-giants clad in golden armor, each 4 zhang tall, suddenly appeared and shouted in unison, "East City, 10 generals, at your command." The golden armored giants, radiating murderous intent, immediately charged towards Fang Chen. With composed expressions, they wasted no words and launched lethal physique techniques straight at Fang Chen. A combined attack from 10 powerhouses close to the Dharma idol realm would force even a human divinity transformation venerable to retreat 3 paces, let alone a mere 8 apertures nascent soul cultivator. The young city lord lowered his head to sip the top-grade spiritual tea, his fingers rhythmically tapping on his knee as he silently counted 1, 2, 3. However, just as he finished counting 3, a bloodied head rolled right up to his feet. Hot blood splattered into his tea, dyeing the green liquid a vivid crimson. Some blood even sprayed onto his face, adding a layer of sinister gloom to his already dark and ruthless countenance. The young city lord's tapping finger on his thigh ceased, and his narrow eyes slowly lifted to gaze at the battlefield. His eyes gradually narrowed. The imagined scene of an 8 apertures nascent soul Fang Chen being blown into a mist of blood by the East City 10 generals' combined punch did not materialize. Instead, Fang Chen had his fingers pressed to his lips, continuously muttering incantations. The East City 10 generals were all reeling as if drunk, unable to stand steadily. Fang Chen, wielding a purple sword, was cutting them down one by one as easily as chopping melons and slicing vegetables. Those with the protection of a Dharma idol could barely block it. Those without protection were decapitated like the general, their heads separated from their bodies. With a squelch, another general was beheaded, his head flying into the air as a column of blood erupted from his neck. Before his soul could flee, Fang Chen forcibly extracted it with a soul imprisoning lock and stuffed it into a soul crystal. In less than 5 breaths' time, far from delivering Fang Chen's head, the young city lord had already lost 2 generals. They were all precious combatants, equivalent to human 9 apertures, nascent soul experts. In all of Heaven's remnant city, there were only just over 100 of them. The fall of any one of them was a loss that Heaven's remnant city could not afford to ignore. Moreover, this was happening right in front of the young city lord. It was a blatant slap in the face. The young city lord let out a cold snort, rose, and smashed the blood-stained spiritual tea to the ground. The next moment, his entire person vanished from the spot. Meanwhile, Fang Chen slashed his sword at the neck of the 4th general. This general also lacked the protection of a Dharma idol. Just as he was about to sever the neck, Fang Chen keenly sensed a shift in the airflow. With a cold expression, he barked softly, "Grand Evolution Sword Array." The 2 flying swords on his back and the purple sword in his hand suddenly intercrossed, instantly forming a sharp sword array. The 3 colored sword lights merged and swirled, transforming into a dazzling and deadly 3-colored divine rainbow that fiercely slashed at the teleporting young city lord. The young city lord's pupils constricted sharply, and he decisively flipped his hand to produce a white bone shield, holding it tightly in front of him. This shield was personally bestowed by the city lord, and was enough to withstand a full-force strike from a human divinity transformation venerable. Yet in the next instant, with a cringe-inducing crack, the white bone shield's surface blossomed with countless web-like fractures under the three-colored divine rainbow, nearly uttering into pieces. The young city lord steadied himself, staring intently at Fang Chen, and said in a low voice, an 8 aperture's nascent soul cultivator, yet able to launch an attack on par with the first decline of heaven. Man, since when did Gixu Prefecture produce someone like you? Fang Chen's expression remained ice-cold as he enunciated each word, hand over the heaven, conquering Grand Marshal. The young city lord stood with his hands behind his back and taunted lightly, coming to heaven's remnant city to demand someone. You really are quite confident. But then he threw his head back and laughed heartily, his tone changing, but I like it. I like people with strength and arrogance like you. Stay and be my dog, and I, the young city lord, might spare your life. As one of the 10 Dharma Idol Realm experts in Heaven's Remnant City, the young city lord indeed had the qualifications for such arrogance. In his eyes, being recruited as his falcon and hound was instead a reward for the strong. Fang Chen stared at him coldly, spitting 2 words through gritted teeth, move aside. Anyone who blocks me, even the young city lord, I'll kill without mercy. Fang Chen, who had already harbored a death wish, was now even more fearless. Let alone some young city lord, even if the city lord himself were to come, he would not inspire the slightest hint of awe in him. Before the words had finished, lightning flared brightly in Fang Chen's eyes, and 2 white-hot arcs shot through the air straight at the young city lord, who was right in front of him. With a crisp crack, the young city lord simply raised his hand and casually swatted the lightning away, dissipating it effortlessly. The smile on his face slowly faded, and he said in an indifferent tone, "You seem to still not understand the situation. This is Heaven's Remnant City, where 10 Dharma Idol Realm experts are stationed, along with over 100 half-giants at the 9 apertures nascent soul level, and an endless army. Why of half-giants? Killing you is merely a thought away from me." Fang Chen sneered. "It's you who doesn't understand the situation." He suddenly swung his arm fiercely, and the Kaiyong city in his palm spun out with a thunderous roar, carrying a majestic might that crushed the firmament, collapsing vast stretches of the white bone wall and embedding itself violently within celestial Remnant City. The young city lord finally focused his gaze on the city wedged into the wall. In a single glance, the ease on his face instantly froze, and a thread of unmistakable panic spread through his eyes. His voice tight, he demanded, "Kaiyong City, you actually went to the 7 cities of the heavenly abyss, and even walked out of the temporal reversion laid down by the sage." The temporal reversion, personally arranged by the sage, had actually been broken. Then would not the scandal that occurred within the 7 cities of the heavenly abyss soon sweep across the entire Gixu Prefecture? The shattering of the temporal reversion caused too great a disturbance. It would absolutely not escape the notice of Gixu Prefecture's top-tier experts. And everything that happened inside could not be hidden from them for much longer. The scandal that Celestial Remnant City paid any price to have that sage cover-up had ultimately been laid bare. Very soon, enraged Dharma cultivator experts from the human race would come knocking to demand an accounting. At this thought, his heart raced with anxiety, cold sweat already seeping from his temples. The young city lord looked at Fang Chen again, his eyes now brimming with hatred and killing intent. He questioned sharply, "Do you even know what you have done?" Fang Chen's sword array hovered in the air, and his voice was like ice as he replied, "Of course, I do, to make sure beasts like you have nowhere left to hide." His gaze was knife-sharp as he glared at the other. "Now, do you grasp your own situation? If you don't want the entire Celestial Remnant City to be dragged down by the heaven-conquering Grand Marshal, then hand him over at once and cut ties completely. When the experts of Gixu Prefecture come calling for a reckoning, it will be far too late." The young city lord's face was ashen. He stared rigidly at Fang Chen, but dared not make a reckless move. Because this single move of Fang Chen had him by the throat. Since the scandal of the 7 cities of the heavenly abyss had been exposed, Celestial Remnant City had to sever itself completely from the heaven-conquering Grand Marshal. Protecting him any further was simply impossible. Yet, as the young lord of Celestial Remnant City, a sovereign-level expert seldom found in all Gixu Prefecture, how could he be threatened by a mere nascent soul cultivator? The young city lord's expression grew ever more sinister. Sneering through clenched teeth, he said, "I will cut ties with the heaven-conquering Grand Marshal. But killing you first, then cutting ties, it makes no difference." Just at that moment, a lithe silhouette materialized out of thin air beside Fang Chen. The newcomer wore a golden mask, a fiery red dress tracing elegant, well-proportioned lines. It was none other than Fairy Ziwei. Her gaze was cold as she spoke blandly. So you half-giants still harbor the habit of devouring humans. If my master learned of this, I am afraid he would no longer agree to the engagement between us. The young city lord was aghast and blurted out, Fairy Ziwei, what are you doing here? Fairy Ziwei calmly walked to Fang Chen's side and said indifferently, perhaps you'd like to kill me as well. The young city lord dared to kill Fang Chen because Fang Chen was a nameless nobody dead, with no one to seek redress. But if Fairy Ziwei died within Celestial Remnant City, Myriad Stars Mountain would never let the matter rest. The young city lord's face darkened, his eyes traveled between the two, and he asked in a heavy voice, Fairy Ziwei, what is your relationship with this man? Fairy Ziwei replied in a toneless voice, nothing particularly special. It is only that I, like him, have come to exact a blood debt from the heaven-conquering Grand Marshal. You people of Celestial Remnant City have actually shielded a beast that swallowed the citizens of several cities alive. As she finished, a blast of cold light blazed in her eyes, and her gaze toward the young city lord now carried undisguised disgust. The young city lord's countenance changed drastically. The heir of Myriad Stars Mountain had personally arrived to demand satisfaction. If he continued to shelter the heaven-conquering Grand Marshal, the entire Celestial Remnant City would be dragged down with him. Yet to obediently hand the heaven-conquering Grand Marshal over to Fang Chen for judgment, that was nothing but a dream. If they were so capable, let Fang Chen deal with that Grand Marshal on his own. The young city lord's eyes darted around, and his face immediately forced a smile as he proclaimed loudly, Fairy Ziwei, you misunderstand. How could we shelter such scum? I had him locked in the dungeon long ago, and was merely waiting for the right moment to dispose of him. Please wait but a moment. I shall personally bring him forth this instant. Fang Chen, however, shook his head coldly and cut him off. No need. For from the very moment he had set foot into Celestial Remnant City, he had already been holding that olfactory jade sliver in his mouth.